Hey, David Brewster here with a new episode of 3 for All. This is 3 Shawn Lane Licks from 1991, and I've had some requests to feature more of Shawn's legendary music, and I did feature him in a 3 for All episode a few years ago, and now we're returning to his just, magnificent guitar work. And for those that are unfamiliar with Shawn's music and his name, here's a few words to kind of describe, his technique and ability. Terrifying, intimidating, scary, brutal. Definitely not for the faint of heart or the weak-fingered, guitarists. Shawn was a maniac, just crazy, wide intervallic stretching and diminished and whole tone and augmented stuff and just wicked guitar work for sure. His career started around 1977. He hooked up with Black Oak, Arkansas when he was 14 years old. Also worked with the Streets and the Willies and Savage Innocence and became a solo artist and eventually started working with Jonas Hellborg and Jeff Sipe. There's no question, Shawn Lane is a badass, legendary guitar legend. So like I just mentioned, Shawn hooked up with Black Oak, Arkansas when he was 14 years old, which is insane. And he worked with that band from 1978 till 1982. And although he did tour, a lot with Black Oak, Arkansas, he didn't actually appear on any albums until recently. Like back in 2019, they released Underdog Heroes, and there's a song called Do Unto Others, and that features, Shawn Lane playing lead. I listened to the tune, it's a cool tune, but it was really interesting to hear, Shawn playing in there. No offense to the song, but the highlight was Shawn Lane for sure. So I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in the other 3 for All I put together for Shawn, but I actually met Shawn Lane when I was a student at AIM, the Atlanta Institute of Music in Atlanta, Georgia. And Shawn Lane and Andy Timmons came in August of 1993, did a clinic, and I vividly remember that clinic. And I'd already seen and met Andy before, so it was great to see him and talk with him afterward again. But meeting Shawn Lane, seeing his clinic, and then talking to him after, in the parking lot for like an hour, and got autographs and stuff. And definitely I have a very, very, great memory of being a student at AIM. And that day when Shawn Lane and Andy Timmons, showed up at the school, it was like Christmas. There was so much excitement. The students, the faculty, everybody was like, Shawn Lane's gonna be here. It was awesome. So the licks in this episode actually came from a video on Shawn Lane's YouTube channel, and it's called Shawn Lane Shredding on a White Stratocaster 1991. And I'd never seen this footage before. It goes on for over 7 minutes, and it's literally just somebody videotaping Shawn playing a white Strat, and he's just going crazy. And it's over 7 minutes, like I said. Like 6.5 minutes of it is him just going nuts, like a computer arguing with Buckethead or something. It's just chaos. But then he started playing like these really soulful, bluesy, almost Hendrix-y licks. And those are the licks that grabbed me. The shredding stuff was badass, but I couldn't even understand what he was doing. It's like I tried to slow it down. It's like, no, that's just crazy. But then the Hendrix bluesy, bending and all this stuff that was going on, it was so expressive and really a different side of Shawn's playing. And most people just think of him as a shred, maestro. But definitely, Shawn had a lot going on. Obviously, multi-instrumentalist, heavily influenced by classical and jazz, but then also, obviously, blues and rock. I know he was a big Hendrix fan. So, even though the licks are going to be a little bit different, if you're expecting shred, there's not really a lot of shredding in this episode, but the licks are so tasty. So here we go. All right, the first lick's this really slick bluesy phrase in an open position, and Shawn keeps hitting the low E string and allowing it to ring, on a few of these licks. Something like this. Such a cool lick. One more time. So this whole lesson's going to revolve around E minor, E minor blues. And for this idea, Shawn's basically weaving between two positions of E minor pentatonic. The open position, open string version right there. And then also the position right, after that. So what he's basically doing there is play the low E string open and let it ring. Grab this D note and bend that to E, bend it up a whole step. And then it's open strings, open high E, open B. Then fret that D note but don't bend it. And then play the high E on open B again. And then you're going to basically do this little kind of smear bend on this A. Like that. So bend that A up, then the open G, grab that A again, and then end on that E. So the first half is... The second half, you hear him kind of slide from nowhere, then grab the low E open. Then you're going to grab this B flat, slide that to B, and then pick that B again. And then grab E to B, and then this G up there to that E. Like that. And then the second phrase there, right there, he's going to grab the low E open, hammer on this B to that D note, grab that E, grab this low G there on the low E string, and then kind of smear bend it and pull off to the low E open, and then end on that fretted E note. So the second half slowly. And then all the way through that lick, which is badass. Next up, we've got a blurry blues phrase, and this is really interesting. The blurry part's the second half, definitely terrifying, but something like this. One more time. So basically what he's doing here, let the low E ring once again. Then you're going to basically bend this A up to B there on the D string. I'm going to release that bend, and that's really weird to kind of bend on the D string. So after you do that bend and release on that A up to B and then back to A, catch this G note, fret that A, and then hop over and end on that E on the A string. Grab that low E again, open, grab this D note and slide back to B. So the low E open, slide that D to B, catch that G note on the low E, smear bend it to the low E open, and then fret that E right there. Like that. Really tasty right there. Then after you do that, he kind of hits that low E a couple more times, and then he basically does this terrifying E Dorian based legato run, and it's based around E Dorian, but he's doing and he's not picking it really, it's more legato. So one more time there. And definitely notice that giant stretch, because we're starting on E, then you're stretching up and grabbing that A, and then coming down A, G, F sharp to E. And then on the A string, grab this D, C sharp to B, and that C sharp signaling Dorian right there, or at least implying. And then on the low E, grab A flat to G, and then basically just pull off to low E open. Like that. And it sounds like he's falling down the stairs or whatever. But all together, next up's a very expressive melodic phrase. Really cool stuff going on here. One more time. Definitely a handful here. Some interesting bending going on too. So the first part, he's basically doing this really slippery sliding thing, and he's sliding, from nowhere into E there on the A string, grab that G note on the D, and then you're going to do a very quick A to B slide on the D string, like that. And then basically hop over and catch E on the G string. And then when you catch that E note, that's where you're going to grab D and bend that up a whole step. Like that. And that's tricky right there. It's like this kind of connect the dots sliding thing. And then you got to bend at the end. So after you bend and release that that D note, then you're going to come down there on the D string, that B, B flat to A. So after you come down that B, B flat to A with some vibrato, then you're going to pull off this G to E, play the low E open, and then the low E open to that fretted E. And then you basically hear him climbing up an E minor 7 arpeggio after that. So it's like the first half, one more time. Then the arpeggio section he's doing. So right there, that E to G, grab that B, D to E on the G string. Then you're going to catch this G note on the B and bend that up a whole step. And then with that still bent, you're going to basically reach over here and grab this B note. And then you're going to basically catch that that bend you're holding there. And that's really tricky because you're holding that bend. And then you're going to basically pick that note while it's still bent up and then release it. And that's really hard to do. That's definitely a handful, but what a cool lick. Okay, here's a bonus lick from this footage, and it's an authentic Hendrix string grab bending lick, and I'm a huge fan of these grabbed bending licks, and we've looked at these from Jimi Hendrix himself, also Steve Lukather too, but now it's Shawn Lane's turn, and it's something like this. One more time. So these are tricky, I'm not gonna lie, these are definitely difficult, and it's just a weird feeling maneuver, I guess. But you're going to start on this D note, bend that a whole step to E and release it, then grab B to D and then bend that D to E again, like this. And when you bend that D note a second time, you're basically starting there bending up on the B, then your finger's going to kind of scooch over and grab B flat there on the 15th fret on the G string, and you're going to release the bend on the G string. And that feels really weird at first. You definitely have to sit there and just practice it. Just drill that over and over and you'll start to get a feel for it. It's really awkward and weird at first. And that's the trick there, is bending up on the B and then releasing on the G. That's hard to do. And it's smooth too, like you don't want like an abrupt pause or anything. It just kind of bleeds right into itself. That last little phrase there, that definitely has kind of a Hendrix vibe to it too. So you put both those together. Try it with different pickups too. I think the neck kind of works well. Some of those in-between positions too. But definitely the good old, bridge position there. Alright, that's going to wrap this episode of 3 for All with this look at 3 Shawn Lane licks from 1991. Definitely, there's no question, Shawn Lane was a monster guitarist and musician. I mean, aside from what he did on guitar, played keyboard, played drums, multi-instrumentalist, could play anything, pretty much, seemingly. But then when he would sit there with a guitar, kind of like this video that I kind of attacked here, when he would sit there with a guitar, and it's like he would just kind of like move off into another dimension or something, and he would just start like going in this zone. And his fingers and his hand like never seemed to get fatigued, even though he was just blazing. I mean, you could almost see smoke coming off his guitar neck. You know, it's like, man, calm down. But then, like, you know, with licks like we looked at in this episode, obviously Shawn was multifaceted. He could do a lot more than just shred your face off. He could play very emotive and expressive and melodic, you know, bluesy stuff, jazz, crazy, you know, classical stuff, fusion, um, all sorts of stuff. Definitely a dynamic, sorely missed guitarist. And I've talked to a lot of people about Shawn Lane and his music over the years. And, you know, some of those words I described earlier in this lesson, terrifying, scary, and intimidating and stuff, I mean, that definitely happens when you hear or see Shawn Lane play. And, like I said, sorely missed, definitely a legendary guitarist. And it really made me happy to see more requests for Shawn. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Lane Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.